the 53 nodal polarity, here you really have a very extraordinary kind of background, because you have a transition between what is ultimately deeply conservative, that's the 50th gate, and what is fundamentally individual, freaky, and mutative, and that's the third gate. So we have very different aspects of the way in which this stage is going to operate, and it's particularly significant in the difference between whether one or the other gates is the south node or the north node. Let's take a look at the 50th gate, the cauldron. This is the gate of preservation. It is deeply tribal. It is the root of our intelligence system and the value of historical continuity, whose traditional values serve and enrich the present and the future. So, for example, if you're born and you've got a South Node 50, that the stage upon which your life opens up on is a stage that is full of, in the environment, beings with traditional values, and a community rooted in traditional values. And of course, this kind of community, depending on where the community is, what the traditional values happen to be, but this is very much being caught into tribal continuity. In other words, being caught up in a world in which the value systems refuse to accept the challenge of the outside, the challenge of whatever, modernity, secularism, whatever it happens to be, depending on the quality of those traditional values. Now, again, remember, this is not as if this is the personality and thus the profile and what the life is going to be about. You know, this is about the environment upon which the potential of the purpose of the life can be fulfilled. And so it's essential for this being who comes into the world with this configuration, you know, to go through this phase of their life, you know, whether it's the first half or second half of their life, where they're dealing with, you know, the power of, in the environment, the traditional values, the traditional tribal values. Now, obviously, when we go to the other side, when we go to the polarity, to the third gate, we get to difficulty at the beginning. We get to a sacral gate that is part of the format energy of the individual process. It's a pulse. There is both a deep uncertainty and a potential melancholy that's rooted in the third gate. And this is the fundamental challenge of initiation to transcend confusion and establish order. And you can see that this will lead to two very different kinds of life processes, depending on whether you're going from the 3 to the 50 or the 50 to the 3. If you start your process with the 50 South Node, you start with traditional values as your background, only to discover that the traditional values, for whatever reason, you know, collapse. And that in that collapse is the rising up of confusion, and out of that confusion, the need to establish a new order. In other words, the breakdown of whatever the continuity happens to be in the environment, you know, the resulting confusion, and then the attempt to establish a new order. If you're coming the other way, that is, if you have a south node, third gate, moving towards the 50th gate as your north node, you know, then you end up starting your process with confusion all around. In other words, confusion in the environment, you know, a lack of clarity, a lack of certainty, a great deal of discomfort in the environment, because in a world of confusion, it is very difficult to operate in a successful way. And so there you would have, in the early part of the life, this attempt to try to establish some order out of the confusion. You know, so that's the environment. Everybody's trying to find a way, and this would lead into the 50, and it would be a return to traditional values. In other words, that order, in that sense, the ordering of the confusion would end up being a return, in that sense, almost a retrograde phenomena of returning to traditional values as the thing that is going to secure one's future. You can see that, for example, in the rise of fundamentalism in middle-aged beings on this planet. You know, if you're carrying this kind of configuration, it is a natural thing to reject the confusion, as an example of modern society, you know, to return to the secure traditional values that were established tribally. So this is a very interesting environment to work with. And again, remember that the perfection of one's process, the fulfillment of one's purpose through one's profile, that given this nodal environment, this is the environment in which that purpose can be fulfilled. Not one to be rejected, not one to be denied, but one to be surrendered to correctly as oneself.
My thanks to you for being